Hi, Tammy. Get started in a minute or two. I think our recording is up and running for those who can't make it. Doing some relaxing music this morning. Hopefully that works for everybody. You know, it's a busy time of year for schools, so I anticipate that, you know, there may be a slightly smaller group today, but we're going to have a good meeting, and my theme is planting seeds, which you'll see in a minute. All right, I have 10 o'clock. I'm going to turn off my sleepy music here. Hi, Kim. Hi, Amy. Good to see you here, Trisha and Annie, Edward. Well, welcome to our April Colleague Connect. Feel free to, as we get started, say hello in the chat. Most of you already have. Tammy says her schools are on spring break this week, and that's amazing. Spring break is important for all the kiddos, families, schools. Lots of important, hopefully, resting and rejuvenation happens. Hi, Ryan. Good morning. I know I had a very active Easter with my two kiddos, so I hope if you celebrate Easter that you had a good one as well. Yes, where is spring? Where is our slightly warmer weather? Yes, Annie, I think it might be right around the corner. Well, let's just go ahead and jump right in. I have a little brief agenda here today. We're planting some seeds. I'm going to go through some reminders first so that if anyone needs to jump off early, you won't miss the important reminders. Then I've got some new resources just to plant some idea seeds. Ryan, I hope you're joking about snow next week. And then we'll talk about planning and coaching questions to go into planning for next year meetings, both for district leaders and then for schools. So quickly, So is there anything else that you were hoping to see on this agenda today that you don't see here? If so, feel free to add that in the chat as I kick off the reminders for today. All right, so first big reminder is that on May 6th from 12:30 to 2, we are having our Ohio Partnership Schools Network end of year celebration. Just wanted to make sure that everyone has seen an invitation for that event. I'll show you what it looks like in a second if you haven't seen it. You should have received, Kristen can confirm for me, I think you should have received a calendar invitation and like a PDF invitation that could also be printed and shared or shared up on a slide in a meeting. So what to come prepared to do? We are going to have a special guest. A state school board member will be there to kick things off, and then we plan to share about this year and all the wonderful progress we've made as an Ohio network. We definitely, if you're in conversation with districts or schools that are planning to come, let them know that they can plan for some small group discussion, informally sharing about their plans, how things went this year, what successes they had, and then what they're excited about for next year, any new ideas they have for moving forward. And then just a reminder, we've got some team pictures in. So we'd love to, similar to last year when we did like an impact slideshow, we'd love to have more faces on the screen this year. So if you haven't yet sent us a picture of your teams from your schools, preferably with a banner in the background, but that's totally optional. We would just love to see all the faces of the people involved. And it can be a Zoom picture if you're doing remote meetings. That's totally fine too. Just screenshot that Zoom screen. Any questions about the May 6th event? Feel free to unmute. You don't have to be all chat box today. Did you guys all see the invite come through?
Yes, I can see it. Thank you.
All right. Well, we're super excited to host this event again this year. It was a really inspiring event last year, and makes you really feel like part of a big network. So we hope that lots of Action Team for Partnerships members can come, lots of school and district leaders, and of course our coaches as well. All right, moving right along. The next reminder is just about the Ohio Network surveys that come from our external evaluator, Melissa BC. Just a kind of a big overview of how those are going. So we've received surveys back from all but 5 coaches. So that's amazing. Thank you so much, coaches, for getting those surveys completed. We've got surveys back from 15 out of our 35 cohort 1 and 2 district facilitators. So room to grow there, but we've got to the end of the month. And if you are a district facilitator here and you haven't seen an email from Melissa BC, please do make a note for us in the chat and we'll make sure that, that you get that. For our action team members, we've got representation from 17 out of our 28 districts so far. And we've got representation from all different like types of members. So teachers, leaders, families, students even. So that's really nice to see a broad representation of the types of members, but obviously we'd love, love, love to have more of our districts represented in our Ohio data because that, really for our 5-year grant, this is like our big kahuna, right? Like this is, we want to show that in Ohio, this model is sort of up and moving and lots of people are involved and engaged in partnerships. And we want to be able to track the impact of that. So in order to do that really well, we kind of need a broad representation of survey responses. That's our main way of tracking that. Okay, Edward, not sure if you completed the right one. So we can check in with Melissa and just make sure you're all set. We can do that after this meeting. Thank you for that. Teachers, we've got 147 surveys back from teachers in 18 schools out of 58. So again, there would love, I know this is maybe spring break has happened and other things, but even a small subset of teachers, maybe one teacher-based team could roll up their sleeves during a meeting and spend 7 minutes, I think it takes ish. 5, 6, 7 minutes finishing a few surveys from the schools. So just a thought, just to make sure your schools are represented. And then families, we've got 237 family surveys completed from, so a smaller set of schools, but more surveys. We did provide a few translated versions. Those, no one's taken advantage of those yet. So we're hoping that we know it's important to hear from all families. So please do let us know if you need us to resend the links to those. I think we shared them in the last Colleague Connect and you should have received them from Melissa BC, but please do let us know if you need anything to feel like you're doing your part to collect the surveys or get the word out about them. Any questions about the surveys? I'm going to pause here for a minute. All right. I see a direct message that SurveyMonkey may not work for some school districts because of like blocking. Has anyone else had that problem? We'll definitely pass that note along to our evaluator. I'm wondering if there's a way around it, because that is what they use, but there may be like a redirect link or something like that that will help make it work. We'll hope that's a isolated thing and not a more widespread issue. Thank you for that note, though. Any other survey questions? All right, well then, I'm going to move right along. First, before I go too far into this, I'm wondering if anyone wants to, well, I'm going to go to just gallery view because I miss seeing your faces. Hey, this is so much better sometimes just to see who's here. So you're welcome to turn your camera on and just, who wants to say hello and just tell me how things are going? You know, these meetings are for you, and I want to make sure that you all have an early and often chance in these meetings to say what you're excited about, say what's on your mind, what's challenging right now.
I'll go first. Challenging right now is state testing has taken over the minds and heads of 98% of the people. And those
Okay.
2% that hasn't taken over, they're still looking down the road to try to finish things up. But I will say that Mansfield has also included this work in their strategic plan, has also included this work in their One Needs assessment. So we're starting to see, and I don't know about the other people, but I'm starting to see more root causes in One Needs assessment, talking about increasing family engagement and finding some ways and surveying our region. Part of the work I'm doing internally for SST is looking at One Needs assessments and what people have put as a root cause so far from this year and last year. So it is a positive, and it is now becoming part of that work or part of the answers to some of those questions.
Yeah, and we know that there are, gosh, I want to say 11 items related to family or community and family engagement in the One Needs assessment. Not everybody has to respond to all of them, but if you do, and or if you want to have a deeper discussion as a team while you're completing the One Needs assessment, I think that the partnership schools work that we're doing here really allows you to say that you are working on communication, that you're working on ensuring that people have access to technology, which I think those are some of the things in that One Needs assessment. So yeah, thank you, Steve, for mentioning that, because we definitely don't want this work to feel separate from any of that overall continuous improvement planning. I mean, obviously, this is such a structural initiative, right? You're creating a team, you're creating plans, you're revisiting them, you're assessing, you know, the impact. There's an evaluation from the National Network of Partnership Schools. So all of this should really feel very connected to the school's overall improvement. So thanks, Steve. Anyone else? Mitch, got your hand up there, and Edward. Let's go for Mitch first.
Hi there.
Hi.
So we've been doing a lot of work in our North Elementary building on, we're actually working with the Columbus Refugee and Immigration Support Group, and they are, Chris, I always refer to them as Columbus Refugee, and I spell it out because everybody thinks it's a person. Yeah. And so we've been working on a mural for our entranceway. We're putting the word welcome up in 42 different languages within our front entrance area, and we're having the kids kind of partake and participate in that. So that's been an ongoing project that we've been trying to work on, and that's coming to fruition in the next week. So we're excited about that. We're also doing a virtual reading of a story. We're trying to secure an author before the end of the year here. And so we're going to be doing a couple different activities within that building. And then we have our central intermediate building where we're also going to be working on a mural project with them before the end of the year. And so and we've done a lot of things connected with PBIS and family engagement too. So we're just excited on, the fulfillment of a couple or several of our projects.
Yeah, absolutely. Wow. Supporting the arts, supporting kids engagement and making the school and the community feel welcoming and supportive of multiple language groups. That's
Yeah.
awesome.
We actually have a huge art show that's coming up that's going to be district-wide, community-wide, and kids are going to be presenting. And so we're excited about that as well.
That's great. Thank you so much, Mitch, for sharing. And is there like an intentional family component with the murals, like an unveiling or
Yeah, so we're actually going to have some parent participation as well, parents coming in and helping with their kids kind of complete the mural piece. So we're actually in the process of doing prep work on all the walls. But yes, there will be parents in attendance as well.
Awesome. I had to ask. Edward, what's on your mind?
Well, I wanted to share that I felt that our elementary school is doing a really good job with their family engagement. And with our back to school bash, we're well underway planning that for the new school year. And my middle school and high school are not as cohesive in regard to their family engagement component. And really haven't gotten their team together yet. And I wanted to see about more support or help on how to process through that and help them get that organized. So next year they can have some of the successes that our elementary school has seen this year.
Yeah, what do you think are the barriers at the middle school and high
Well,
school that you're seeing?
Principals. So I think that slowed it up in the for the first part of this year to just meet people and get a feel of their school. So I think there's a little bit of that, but my hope was that we could pick it up in the spring so that next year could be a more successful launch for them. I've also seen that with other items like the PBIS and other things that just don't seem to progress at the pace that our elementary school does. And I think a little bit could be new leaders still, but I think a little bit of that, they're just harder institutional organizations to shift with the mindset sometimes of the total team. So so I think some of that in having perhaps other like role responsible people, like other principals of a middle school or other principals of a high school, maybe helping them a little bit in the sense like, here's how I put this together. Here's how I determined how to engage the parents to be on the team. And then here are the activities we thought of, maybe there'd be something similar to yours. So maybe even a job alike group or a little, perhaps we could partner up a little bit by school type. So like if you're small town or rural or suburban or urban, you could have a little job alike type of talk time or something.
Yeah, let's definitely put our heads together about that, because I think there may be people in this room that could share a potential principal mentor with you who's doing middle school, high school family engagement and has that sort of positive mindset and ideas, passion driving them, that may just be able to, kind of give their 2 cents. Or, we can think about in our May 6th celebration, if you think that they could come to the event, just send us an email and we could be a little bit intentional about those small groups, kind of pairing them with somebody who may be able to spark some new ideas for them. I do like the principal mentor idea for sure. And then there may be things that we could do in partnership with your SST coach. We could do like a mini session about our middle school resources or high school related resources. So I think there's opportunities to kind of help them think, not necessarily like this is just like what it looks like at the elementary level, but what does it look like to start doing future planning, career development, career awareness in the middle school and high school realm with families in mind and community partners? What does it look like to help their kids with like executive functioning skills at the middle school level? They've got such a different set of challenges to master at that middle school level, and families are engaged in that process, whether we support them in that role or not. So how do we lean in and say, as a school system, we can do better at sharing the developmental things that are happening in middle school and helping families feel like this is a normal thing, it's an expected thing. Kids, these are the differences from elementary school to middle school, and how you as a parent and caregiver can be there with your child along the way. So, we've definitely got a lot of middle school ideas to share from our middle groundwork, our middle years to careers resources. So if you're interested, if your coach is willing, we could do like a little mini thing. I know schedules are tight, people are strapped for staffing time, but definitely reach out, Edward, if that's something you're interested in. All right, well, I'm going to attempt to share my screen again and not have it show up in a funky way. Let's see what happens here. All right, what do you guys see? Do you see my slide notes, or do you see the slide only?
No, we see slide only.
Yay! That's very exciting for me. All right, just planting some more seeds here, planting some idea seeds for, and Kristen's going to help me out by putting some links in the chat. So the first new resource that I thought I'd share with you today is, it is based on the Reframing Academy that we are currently running. The Reframing Academy helps people rethink how they talk about family engagement. And in a workshop, as part of that academy, the participants had to brainstorm talking points to kind of avoid these like traps in the way that we think about family engagement. So in the chat, you'll see a link to a page on our website where we just share lots of talking point examples. And you may be surprised that, I know I fell into some of the same traps in thinking about families in the past. So you may see some ideas for sort of reframing the way people talk about family engagement in your district, in your schools. And that can be written into your plan for next year. In your district leadership plan, it could be, in presentations, how could I incorporate some of this reframed talking points? You could agree to sort of self-assess how many of these traps have I fallen into, and what do my staff need to be able to reframe the way they think about family engagement. So I think there's opportunities there to use that resource. A second resource that is recently from our center is our Kinship Connections webinar recording of how schools can partner with kinship families. And so I'd just ask that you consider there within that set of that webinar and resources, there's a get to know your kinship families tool. It's like a little either like a printout you can use the questions in like a conversation with a kinship caregiver, or there's even like a Google form that staff can use to fill out information about a kinship family. So I would urge you to consider whether that's something that you want to write into your plan for the coming year. Is that get to know you kinship families tool something that could be of use to your teachers? So Kristen, that one's in the chat too.
Yes.
All right, thanks. A third new resource, and feel free to interrupt me, ask questions as I go as well. A third resource that I thought you may want to know about is the Pacer Center has resources in English and in other languages for families of students with disabilities. I saw some really cool ones just in exploring it. There's all kinds of stuff in there. I mean, everything from information about like juvenile justice to IEP planning with families at the table. So if you've got a little time and you really want to dig in and explore family engagement specifically for students with disabilities, the Pacer Center is a great resource for you. And of course, we've also got Ohio-based resources for families of students with disabilities. All right. Another new resource on our website is information about how families can support early mathematical thinking, like during pretend play. And so, you know, our older people supporting older grade levels may be saying, why is she sharing this? Oops. But I'm sure that we've all thought at one time or another that, gosh, like if we worked on the foundational skills that kids have coming into our buildings, then we would be much better off. And so I just urge you, while you're planning, to think proactively. Think, are we doing things early enough to welcome families to share about the importance of their role in early learning? And I would just especially urge people supporting elementary schools to think about the early childhood connections they can be making. This blog post that Kristen's putting in the chat is just very simple, everyday things that families can do to kind of break down that idea that only some people can be good at math. It's just really, really early things that families can do. So whether it's, you know, sharing this with families in the summertime or as part of a outreach to new families coming into your schools. It's just a thought I had for, you know, how do we think more proactively about our plans? Any questions about any of those before we continue? I'm going to stop share again so we can see each other. Hey, Lisa, thanks for the positive feedback. You're there somewhere in the background. All right. So in thinking about those 4 resources I just shared, does anyone want to talk about how any of those connected to something they're already doing, or like what was your favorite one that you heard? So we had the reframing one, the kinship connections, the Pacer Center, students with disabilities resources, and then the idea of outreaching to early childhood.
I think the website is so dense and so well stocked with resources. Again, I just want to say thank you so much for drawing them out and like highlighting some ones that we can use across different demographics. I appreciate it. I'm actually dropping them in now and trying to figure out how do I push them out. So thank you.
Great.
Yeah, especially students with disabilities. I think there's often an effort that we need to extol a little bit further for those families. And to really see each other. So I especially am drawn to that one, but thanks for all of them.
Sure. Yeah, as I was digging in, I mean, I didn't click around to everything. Obviously, there's a ton on the Pacer Center's website, but the one on juvenile justice struck me because it was like how a parent of a child with a disability can make sure that any sort of behavioral issues that are going on at the school, that everyone's kind of aware that it may be linked to a learning disability. It may not be, but it may be linked to a learning disability. And there were even resources for like a school resource officer or probation officer for like really thinking more intentionally about where is this behavior coming from? How do we make sure that that child, that minor, has an adult at the table with them, protecting them and asking the right questions, just being at their side. So it kind of spelled out like the legal requirements and also just like good things to keep in mind about that those root causes of behavior. So not that every kid experiencing some behavioral challenges has a learning disability, but we just know that it can be linked. So just keeping that in mind. All right, Jill said reframing the language used for invitations, including families and caregivers and all the language used. Absolutely. The We Hear You series, I'd love to hear an update about that at some point, Jill. And Annie shared a TED talk about that everyone is good at math. Math is, yeah, sometimes math gets a bad rap, but even someone like me who like has advanced statistical coursework under my belt, sometimes I find myself making these kind of weird statements about math that are just in our cultural repertoire, and I'm like, no, I need my kids to hear me like talking positively about my math skills, and pattern recognition is all part of math. Coding now is such a big thing these days that kids can start doing like little coding things so early. So appreciate that video link, Annie. Tammy, what's going on? I see your hand up. Did you know your hand was up? Maybe you didn't know. Okay.
Yeah, I did. I just couldn't get my mouse over to my other screen. So I've been participating in the reframing PD, and I had one of my members from the coaches had asked if they were going to offer that again, and they said it was a possibility. So I would just like to encourage everyone, if you didn't sign up for it this time, it's too late to do so. But if they do offer it again, it's a self-paced interactive curriculum, kind of a flipped model where you go through 3 modules at a time. And then after you complete them, you can register for the community of practice. And then during the community practice, you discuss it. But it's not just, they've done a really nice job of their PowerPoint slides. There are little short video clips. They've done a nice job of making it interactive and not difficult to get through versus just sitting for 2 hours and watching something. So
thanks,
if they offer it again, I encourage everyone to sign up for it.
Yes, thanks, Tammy, so much for that testimonial. And sometimes we offer professional development and it is squarely for teachers, and sometimes we offer learning sessions and they are squarely for families. The Reframing Academy is for those higher level communicators, I would say, people who have the ability to really shift communications for a system. So if that's you, which a lot of the people in this room, that would apply to you, this is sort of incorporating research on how to communicate effectively about family engagement. So if you've seen any of our work that has the mission control metaphor, using the space launch metaphor, that came out of this, the work done by the Frameworks Institute. And so those modules are the latest and greatest resource. That course is, and we helped design the one that we're using in Ohio. So it's not, there will be like a national one available, but this one is really like our team rolled up our sleeves and worked with the National Association of Family, School, and Community Engagement to make sure that it was something that we could really get behind. And so I'm glad that it is going well, Tammy. It's going, right? Things are up and moving. Anyone else want to unmute and share?
Meredith, can I just ask a question about the Reframing Institute? I did that, I think last year or the year before. Has it changed? And should we attend again if we haven't been there?
So we did a reframing event in the past, and that may be what you're referring to. This is like a course. It's like a series of modules that you do on your own, and then there's community of practice, like workshop style meetings periodically during the course. So it's way more like applied, like you learn about things and then you work on applying them and practice them together with others. There's a journal component. So it's a bit more drawn out and in depth than anything we've done in the past. Is that
Okay, thank you. I'll
that
check
helpful?
it out.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
Yep. And anything that we offer in terms of online courses is on a page of our website. And we also tend to share about them in our news and guidance emails, which is under the About Us tab on our website. And then the online courses obviously are under professional learning. I'll just drop that link real quick because we learned about another course for family supporting professionals. So librarians, early childhood family educators, home visitors that the University of Minnesota has. They've got this partnering with families to support early math online course that they're piloting right now. So that's also on our online courses page because we were like, a free online course about partnering with families for early learning, for early math. That's something not in our toolkit. We had an early literacy one, but not an early math one. So we're happy to share that. Thanks, Miss Marie, for coming. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
We'll see you again soon.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right, well, I'm going to get back to my slideshow here. Just a couple more things. So this is just kind of open discussion questions. Thinking about your district leadership plans, you know, we do want to see this sort of cycle of revising them every year. So springtime right now is kind of when we would want you to kind of pull up those district leadership plans you created in your first or second year, depending on if you're cohort 1 or cohort 2, and take a look at them. So I'm curious if anyone wants to put in the chat or unmute and share. I know sometimes we just kind of, in our work, we just kind of get going and we don't necessarily keep those plans as our guiding light or our North Star, or sometimes they get shelved for a while. So I'm curious how often you've found that you're using your plan to stay on course or adjust. Are you pulling them out in those coaching meetings? And then what new priorities are you considering for next year? Those are my two big questions. And if you want sort of, I put a list of a lot of the district leadership big things in the NNPS handbook. So as you look at this list, I'd love for anyone to share in the chat or to unmute and share. I'm not going to go to gallery view because I want to keep this up on the screen. Let me know what you're thinking about for next year as a district leader. Or as a coach. Oh, sorry, did someone try and talk?
Meredith, I'll just talk about
Heather.
our coaching, or
Sure.
the coaching I've done with the district I'm working with is our last meeting, we just really talked about like looking backwards and evaluating in order to look forward. So really, you know, we review the plan and progress on the plan almost every time, but you know, the survey came out. But the district I'm working with is so small that they won't get the data back. And so they really want to make sure that they're evaluating and can then base decisions on data. So they're having some district conversations about how to go about doing that and including all their stakeholders. And then, you know, thinking about the next year and how they'll go about planning and with each of the schools, because everybody's kind of in a different place, but then also scaling up, you know, at the district level.
Great. That sounds like a good springtime conversation thread. So they're thinking about evaluation. Did they have any sort of specific strategies in mind for their schools? Like, are they going to do their own kind of surveying or focus groups, or what are they mulling over?
Yeah, I shared with them some of your resources, the Partnerships for Literacy, like the self-evaluation for the team to do. And then there was another one that you shared, I think that was for BLT evaluation of family engagement.
A needs assessment that a building leadership team could do.
Correct. But he was also thinking about, using it in different ways. So I just shared with him some resources, and I think they're going to kind of design their own, including maybe a parent survey, just to make sure that the language is parent friendly, and that they'll understand what they're trying to get at and asking.
Yeah, we have a couple different family survey examples on our website, just in case they're looking for even like how to set up like the intro to the survey. What can we say to be like really just friendly and welcoming in the introduction. I think the one I'm thinking about is like for post-secondary transitions for families, but it could be adapted for other surveys.
Yeah, if I did not come across that one, so if you could forward that to me at some point, that would be great.
Yeah, I'll do it while we're talking. Otherwise, my birthday's tomorrow, so I'll get distracted by being birthday girl, and then.
Well, happy birthday.
Thanks. It's fun to have an Earth Day birthday. I always get to do like a tree planting or whatever. All right, I've got the link here for you. So other people, when you were looking at that district leadership list that I had up on the screen there, anything stand out to you as, I think I will do that next year, or I need to keep working on that, even though it was on my list this year?
It's a great list, guys. I'm looking at some of the areas that we definitely could drill down. I keep thinking training, but I think I could parse out whether it's the in-service education or how do we align many of the initiatives that our buildings are launching, and how does it fit in well with organizing the family engagement work and the community partnerships. So I think, looking in terms of like revisiting your plan and some of these very specific areas, I could pick like at least 5 that I know we could do better. And so I appreciate the list, and I'll appreciate sort of revisiting it and measuring how my plan is lining up with just getting better as we go along. It's been a tough 2 years to launch a program completely online. And so I feel like some of the pieces of missing, critical relationship builders, which is the bedrock of so much of our work, has been a struggle. And so I know we have to keep moving, it's education. When we know better, we do better. But I think there has to be some way to look back and say, what can we drill down on? Or now that we know a little bit more, do a little bit differently. So I love this list. Thank you again for that.
Sure. I mean, this is straight out of the handbook. I did not reinvent. So, I think what page is this exact list on? It is page 262. I just took all the headers off of that. And at least I know that you have been doing a lot you said in-service education, to kind of wrap together your various initiatives. You got the community schools thing going on. You've got a diversity and equity team that you've got a policy that you're trying to promote aligned with that. So I appreciate all those alignment things that are swirling around in your head as you're doing this work. But something that you said, I think could be bullet number 1 on this list, and it could also go along with guiding the ATPs, but it's really that idea of like, how are we building trusting relationships to move this work forward? I was down in Wellston the other day, and can I just say, I walked into their staff room and I was like, I want to work here. It smelled like, I don't know, warm cookies. And there were tablecloths on the table and food laid out. There were positive quotes surround all over the walls. Above the positive quotes were like, here's Scarborough's reading rope about literacy achievement. Here's Partnerships for Literacy Impact. But but at the core, it was like this nice, relaxing feeling. And I was just hoping that every school had a place like that. And so when we think about relationship building, when we think about our team meetings, are our team meetings joyful? Are they yummy? Do they smell good? I know it's not always easy in a school to have everything not smell like crayons or, you know, other hormones, but but to have this like sanctuary for staff to get together with families at the table. I mean, there's ways to do that on Zoom. I really hope that sometimes you feel like this is a joyous place on Zoom with us, with music to start off and open mics. But you know, what can we do in buildings as well to nurture those feelings like this is a good place to be, and we're grateful for the time whoever is spending. So thank you, Lisa, for reminding me of that. Relationship building. It's the name of the game, right? All right. Let's see, we've got 15 more minutes, I think. So this is just a funny note. It's not even what I plan to say, but as I look at that first bullet on the screen, when will your school teams create a 2022 to 2023 plan? I'm reminded that I often write questions for people that are very yes or no. And I have to really intentionally look back at my meeting facilitation plans and switch it to a more high expectation sounding question. So this bullet used to say, have your school teams created a 2022 to 2023 plan yet, or something like that. It was very close-ended, yes or no. But that is a little bit like on the spot feeling. So instead, I'd just like to throw out this question of when will your school teams think about, as a coach, as a district leader, when will your school teams create their 2022 to 2023 plan this spring? And I guess the caveat is, how can we as coaches create those more open-ended, high expectation leading questions as we're coaching? So feel free to put in the chat or unmute and share. Yes, Edward, I wanted to stay in Wellston. Sorry, I was just opening the chat and seeing that. So has anyone worked on revising plans yet? Are we still in implementation and evaluation mode, or are we shifting to thinking about the next year? Let me know. It's fine either way. The answer is valid either way.
This is Tammy. One of the things we did with the Toledo group is we were really struggling trying to find measurable goals that related to the one plan, obviously, but at the same time were things that the ATP could control. And we got all caught up in test scores and credits earned and all that kind of stuff. But after hashing it out literally for a couple of different meetings, we decided that we needed to make sure we measured like how many parent contacts were made regarding the math event, or how many resources were handed out during the family health fair, or things that we could influence, or they could influence, me being coach on the side, but things that they had control over. And it seems very simple now that we figured it out, but if that helps anybody else, not to have several meetings of trying to figure out how to measure progress, thought I'd share.
Yeah, so you almost spelled out, okay, if this is our goal, what are some interim things that we are doing, that we outputs that we can measure as a team in particular, not necessarily outside of our team bubble, but like, what are we doing as a team to ensure that we're meeting some of those outcomes?
Correct. Yeah. So if it's a reading goal, then, how many at the reading fair, how many books were shared with families? How many families attended? How many people did we reach after the event and send the video link to? Or so not specifically related, it influences student achievement, but student achievement wasn't the direct influence that we had or that the ATP has. So
Mhm.
again, it seems simple now that we've figured it out, but it wasn't simple in the process. So
Yeah, no, I can appreciate that. And sometimes it's we're counting very discrete things like how many or how much, how many hours of yeah, how many hours of X did people receive? And then sometimes what we're measuring is more like that mindset shift. So maybe as maybe we even do a self-assessment, like a quick self-check of like how confident we're feeling as an ATP or as a district leader, like a yearly sort of, how am I doing at this this work? You know, are we developing new relationships within the schools? What are sort of the unanticipated positive consequences of this work, negative consequences, and how do we shift to more positive? So yeah, sometimes it is a very discrete number, and sometimes it's, man, like we planted a lot of those seeds for next year. We didn't maybe we didn't reach every family with that reading goal. But we really carefully considered equity in our literacy programs when it comes to communicating with families. And we've got a solid plan for next year to do positive calls home because we know that our teachers need that positive interaction with families. We know that. So I think sometimes the measurement is like a very discrete thing. And sometimes it's like we sat to get down together and aired our dirty laundry and made a plan for improvement. Yeah. So when I was in Lancaster as well the other day, and the principal used that phrase of like airing our dirty laundry, because I was asking her, like, how did it feel to have a parent at the table? This is a parent with 4 kids in your district or in your schools. Like, how did that feel? And she said, well, you know, sometimes it's hard because you feel like you're airing your dirty laundry, but she had such a great perspective as a parent and caregiver in the school, and now she works here. So, you know, I think sometimes we just have to like put our egos aside, put our fears aside, and say, who do we need at the table to do that nitty gritty planning? Think about equity. Think about shifting practices. And I can just tell you, it's really cool to hear when it works well. You know, I've yet to hear it not work well. So it's really cool. And I hope that some of you will get to see those interviews that we did. It was part of our Partnerships for Literacy program. And so 3 years in now, we're going back to districts and saying, you know, what was the impact of this work? So eventually later this year, we'll publish a video with some of those perspectives. All right, Edward says they're planning next year right now, planning their back to school bash. That's great. I think this is a natural time of year to plan. And just so you know, in terms of like cohort 1 and 2 submitting your school plans, we do, you know, the cycle of NNPS is that you do spring planning and sort of share those drafted plans for the 2022 school year with your coaches. And then because we know everyone's going to be slightly at a different pace, you know, depending on when your school year ends and when your team decides their sort of final wrapped up meeting is, we will ask that your coaches submit any sort of drafted plans to us in the fall. So for cohort 1 and 2, for cohort 3, because they're just getting off the ground, we want them to feel like they've got an early, you know, drafted plan success. So just like you did in your first year, we give them like 2 weeks after their first kickoff training. And then I think this year it's May 13th is when those cohort 3 district and school plans are due. But we won't get the cohort 1 and 2 plans to us until this fall. Feel free to submit them whenever. Like this, you know, earlier is better, obviously, because we'll just keep collecting them until the fall. Yes, Steve?
Just wanted you to know too, that Mansfield is working on theirs, but they're also closing a school. So they've got schools closing, grades moving. All the 3rd grades are moving to an intermediate building.
Oh, okay.
closing one of the elementaries. So it's on their list and it's on the things they're doing, and you can see it in their last, they have full day Fridays, they have PD, and it was an agenda item talking about their family engagement plan. But know that they're going to be working on some of those things.
Okay.
And everybody has to be out of the buildings by June 3rd in order to move preschool to another elementary. So
It's a big
just so you
job.
know, they're going through and negotiations now at the same time. So just to give you an idea of
Okay.
what chaos is also taking place.
Absolutely. Yeah, lots of transitions happen over the summer, right? New buildings are created, new leaders, new families coming into the building. So yes, I just encourage you, while all that is happening, to look for those natural leaders that are stepping up, look for the new families who are coming in and offering and really showing up and expressing interest in being a strong partner. With chaos comes opportunity, right? All right. So I don't think we have time for this, and that's okay because we had a lot of good open mic time today. But as you go into your schools and continue planning for next year, I drafted out some coaching questions that you can take with you today. And you could do this with any activity from your school plan. You could do this with an activity not in your school plan explicitly, but just something that that you're working through that you've done maybe forever and just didn't write down in your plan. That's fine too. So pick an activity from what your schools do, and think about who benefited most from this activity. Who didn't benefit from the activity? And try and set aside those biases of like, we're doing so much and they're not doing this. And so try and set that aside and just think very objectively, if you will, for a sec about who benefited most from that activity. Sit with that for a little bit. Who do you want to benefit from the activity? Who needs it the most? Did it help us reach a student achievement or wellness goal? Was the intent that it reaches a goal, but maybe in execution it fell a little short? Was it high impact? So this is my favorite visual for high impact. I don't know if Kristen can throw that in the chat real quick, or Kristen may have had to jump off, so maybe Beth can throw that in the chat. That's the flamboyant foundation slide that sort of circles like, here are the generally higher impact things that affect student achievement versus things we do that are good, you know, for a variety of other reasons, but don't directly link to student outcomes. And then how could we improve the reach of this activity? So hopefully you have some activities in your mind as I'm going through this, and feel free to grab these off the screen. I don't know if you can do a screenshot or a snipping tool, whatever you use for that, and take them with you as you sit in BLT meetings, as you sit in DLT meetings. Thank you, Beth, for putting that in the chat. As you sit in all the meetings that you do, right? Whenever there's opportunities, if it's a PBIS related meeting and it's about, you know, how are we going to continue supporting mental health of students, make sure you're thinking in that improving reach. And sometimes it's doing something different to improve reach, and sometimes it's doing more, sometimes it's just persisting and doing things year to year and ever so slightly tweaking the communications so that it seems more inclusive. There's all those kinds of things we can do to improve reach. Any questions about my coaching questions? Any coaching questions you would add? Feel free to add a question in the chat that's on your mind. And then I'm going to quickly just go to next steps. So final push for surveys. I think we aim to close those out by April 29th. Those are from Melissa BC. Check your inbox if you need the links. I just want to offer that or remind that every year the National Network for Partnership Schools does a promising partnership practices guide. And so you can submit your partnership practices. I know Dr. Epstein always reminds and encourages this, but the annual update for NNPS will, like the form to renew your membership and update your information with NNPS, that will come out by May 3rd. So if you want to put a calendar reminder on May 3rd to check the NNPS for the NNPS update forms, that makes sure that you're still a member of the network, that you're sort of continuing to take advantage of all the services that Dr. Epstein and her team provide. And that's how you pay for it as well. And then just a reminder that, like I said, we do think of this springtime as a time for revising your plans. So whenever you have a good solid next year draft, share it with your coach and they will share it with us. Thank you for coming. 11 o'clock, right on the button. Heidi, thanks for sharing. SSD 7 has a family engagement day, a celebratory day. I think that's what Heidi's sharing about in the link there. And they've got some professional learning sessions, some awards they give out for their region. So feel free to attend that. Thanks, Susan. Thanks, Amy. Great to see you guys here today. I'm going to stop sharing and I will stick around and answer any questions.
Yeah, and I just want to tell everybody that Amy Pleat, if you have not heard her, she is amazing. She talks about family engagement and inclusive practices and how to bring family partnerships to the IEP meeting. So I'm so excited, and I think the region and the state's going to be so blessed to hear from her. So I highly encourage you to attend her session.
Thanks, definitely. All right, we've got, I know Jill, you wanted me to stick around for a minute, answer a question. I'm happy to do that.
Yeah.
Any other quick questions before our other coaches hop off? Bye, Tammy. Good to see you. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Aisha. All right, Jill, how's it going?
I'm good, and you? Sorry, I was in my office, so it's like I had everything. I had the video off while they were doing their stuff that they needed to do. So for our We Hear You series, one of the things that so no matter how it's been put out, whether it's on the flyer that's going home with the